What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Gouache Universe podcast. I'm that comic book artist that discusses comics, science fiction, and pop culture news, all while changing the universe, one subject at a time. I had to get on here and, of course, I want to do a quick recap of X-Men 97, episode 3. What was the name of the episode? I got my notes right here. Uh, Fire Made Flesh. So overall, my overall thoughts on the show. First of all, just in episodes 1, 2, and 3, they've managed to capture so much depth and a wealth of information that they're really getting the story moving and just a plethora of depth in the characters and the plot and everything. So many stories that they uh are wrapping up in just these 3 episodes. And I'm just so impressed by this show and how it's managing to capture the true essence of the X-Men that we've sorely been missing for the last, I don't know. Well, it's in the comics to stay the same, but I'm talking about like the media outside of the comics, whether it be movies, live action. Of course, we did have Wolverine and the X-Men, and that was pretty good. The Nickelodeon cartoon that came on. But anyway, um, as I was saying, I'm just so impressed by just what they've managed to do in the first 3 episodes. And we haven't even gotten to, I think it's what, 10 episodes this season for this first season of X-Men 97. But just what they've managed to do in just 3 episodes, as they put so much story in these 3 episodes, is just nothing less than amazing. Now this episode, Fire Made Flesh. This episode was great. I'm so impressed with how much they compacted because this story was an entire event. This was a multi-year, multi-layer character event that happened in the comics. Um, and several years it took for this plot to, actually manifest and come out. Everything from, Madeline Pryor being revealed to be a clone of Jean Grey and everything. And just what they've managed to do with this episode, where they put an entire storyline into what was it, 28 minutes, is just amazing. And that it didn't feel forced either. It felt, of course, you want to, get the story, if you're going to do it in that time, you're going to want to wrap up everything within that time frame. But for some reason, it still didn't feel forced. I mean, because all the characters, you know, did their parts. Everybody it seemed believable that everything happened. It didn't seem like, oh, they're just trying to wrap this up. They're just trying to wrap that up. It seemed like it just made sense. And just the way they were able to kind of, give it a resolution towards the end is amazing. And I felt like, okay, then. I mean, I expected it to be a little bit longer. I thought it was going to be like, maybe a two-parter or something like that, or maybe a three-part episode, but they were able to, wrap it up in just one episode. And they put so much in this episode, man. Um, right off the beginning, when we start at the beginning, you have uh Jean, the real Jean on the sofa, and you have Madeline and the other X-Men, trying to figure out, which one is the real Jean. And Beast is running his tests and everything. And he discovers that, okay, the one that's laying on the couch is the one who is the right age. She's the right, you know, uh, uh, what did you say, carbon imprint of Jean Grey, and she's the real Jean, which appears in science and everything. And the clone and the the other Jean is actually the clone. And it's kind of funny because she tries to get everybody else to kind of go along. It's like, I'm Gene, I fought in countless battles. It's me, me. And everybody was like, uh, well, about that. And, she's like, "Of- Scott, of course, you believe me, don't you?" And Scott was like, well, and she went over and went to grab the baby. I was like, oh, I was like, maybe you need to give me that baby back. Tell you what, girl, you do your thing. I'll hold on to the baby while you go and, just relax, take some time or whatever, you know? I just thought that was funny. She went straight for the baby, but yeah, so anyway, so that happened, and she got upset or whatever that her authenticity was coming into play, into question or whatever. And so that was kind of the beginning of her descent. And it's amazing, because in the comics, it took a little bit longer for her to, go into that descent. I mean, it was actually funny in the comics because if you get a chance, read the Inferno storyline and the storylines leading up to the Inferno storyline, because uh, Madeline, Madeline Pryor, she was with Cyclops, and they had just had the baby, and I think they had left the X-Men for a while. This is in the comics. I think they had left the X-Men for a while, and they had, I don't know, I think they either retired or they were just on sabbatical, just taking a break or whatever. And I think they were, or if I'm not mistaken, I think they were in Alaska. And the real Gene had been, you know, quote unquote dead for many, many years, since the Phoenix saga. And so Cyclops and Madeline are in Alaska, you know, with the baby and everything. They just had the baby, and Cyclops gets a call from, I think it was one of the Avengers, Captain America or something like that. And Captain America's like, "Hey, yeah, look, the real Jean is she's here in New York, and she's alive. Yeah, we found her at the bottom of the river. She's in a cocoon, so you want to come and check her out or whatever." And Cyclops is like, "What?" And Madeline's in the background, she's like, "What? What is it?" And Cyclops, "Oh, look, I gotta go." "Well, what is it?" "I just gotta go." And anyway, to make a long story short, come to find out, the next thing you know, Madeline is watching Cyclops on television with uh you know the real Jean Grey. And so basically the ultimate of the story is he ended up leaving her, Madeline, for the real Jean Grey that has come back. And that was the beginning of her like descent into, darkness, into the Goblin Queen. But I say that to say I like how they handle it here. I mean, it still felt, you know, I think what serviced this so much is because they built up her character so much in just the first two episodes. And plus, we have this history, of course, with the original show of her. But they built up her, they really made you, of course, when you have a new show, you have to make the characters likable and everything to reintroduce the character back to the audience. And so I think it serviced this story, this particular story, that we had that build up in the first two episodes of X-Men 97, where you actually, you know, began to have an affinity, a reacclimation to this character and having an affinity for her. And just making her a likable character. And it's kind of heartbreaking when, she goes through this because it's not her fault. She can't help that she's a clone. I mean, this was outside, sinister forces. But anyway, so this was the beginning of her descent and everything. And see, let me see where we go next. After that, she leaves and she goes into her room. And so Beast continues to, discover that each scientist has their own imprint on their work. And he discovers that Mr. Sinister is actually indeed behind this clone. And while this is happening, Mr. Sinister is actually haunting Goblin Queen, or she at this point she hasn't become the Goblin Queen, but he's haunting her while she's with the baby or whatever, and with her alone time or whatever to try to figure this all out. And man, then we get Mr. Sinister, and he shows up in the background, real haunting and everything. And man, it's so good to see Mr. Sinister again, that character. And from there it happens. He reveals himself to her as being her father. And I think he says something like, "You're mine in body, in spirit, in soul," something or whatever. He said, "Every cell in your body, every cell belongs to me. Your mind, your body." I was like, "Ooh, okay, oh man, sinister old freak, ain't he?" But yeah, so yeah, so he starts to, reveal himself as being her creator, and he starts to activate her mind, that splinter cell of her actually being under Mr. Sinister's control or whatever. And I just thought that whole scene was very well done because, you know, the animation was perfect and spot on because she's kind of facing that that struggle with her duality. Is she the real Jean or is she the Goblin Queen? She's trying to resist it. And Mr. Sinister, his will is just too much. And and she finally, you know, you see the diamond come in her head or whatever, that's showing that Mr. Sinister does have, full power over her. And her transformation begins and she transforms into the Goblin Queen. And man, as she's doing it, you see her ruining the room that she's in and transitioning everything, and she really starts to take over the mansion and kind of like I don't know. I think at this point it kind of turns into a straight horror, because all the things that were going on is kind of like everybody's worst fears starts to come to fruition. From Gambit's worst fear of Magneto and Rogue, clapping cheeks, if you know what I mean, them getting together and everything. Uh, you have Morph. He's having his internal fears being awakened because in the second season, well, the first season, he was supposedly, well, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen the first season, um, he was supposedly killed, but it comes to reveal in the second season he was kidnapped by, Mr. Sinister. So he's kind of having flashbacks of that. And you get Roberto da Costa. He's having his flashbacks of his personal things that he has, his demons that he has to deal with, with his him being rejected by his parents and everything. And just that whole scene of it's almost like a poltergeist, where things starts to, come to life and whatever. Their worst, darkest fears starts to come to life. And all of that is just wonderful, So the Goblin Queen, she's in her full element, and she begins to, haunt everybody and take over the mansion. Then you start to see the X-Men, they sink into what's quote unquote like a hell type scenario, and they have to fight off these demons. All the while, uh, Jean, the real Jean, starts to wake up, but she's still kind of like in a stupor, so to speak, and you know, Wolverine and Wolverine is still there. He's kind of like, as the anchor to kind of bring her back to normalcy or whatever. And he wants her to focus on him. And I'm like, hey man, he's shooting his shot. So all that was just great, man. Just, you get to see his you know, he still has feelings for her and she still has feelings for him. And I just thought all of that was great. Um, what else? Let me see. So yeah, just my overall, that's my take. I mean, that the whole episode was just fantastic. And then, of course you had the where they launched the strike against the Goblin Queen as she's, full blown in her, Goblin Queen persona, fully giving into that persona. She's just amazing. And just the things they did with her in the animation was like, man, it was kind of steamy, when she did the Basic Instinct Sharon Stone. I'm like, wait a minute. Should I be covering my eyes? When she opened her lid, I was like, oh, wait a minute. Is this what is this? Is this rated R? NC-17? But man, I was like, oh, that was fantastic. The animation in that whole scene of her facing off against Magneto, facing off against the X-Men. Of course, she had the cameos and everything with Morph transforming into magic. Uh all of that was just fantastic. And man, that was just amazing. Of course, in the comic books, we comic book kids, we always like to see, characters face off with other superpowered characters, face off with other powered characters. It's a big thing. So just having Madeline, the Goblin Queen versus Magneto, that was a nice scene. That was a really nice scene. And she kind of sunned him, with her powers and everything. Um, Made quick work of Magneto, because, when she said something like, your magnetism is very charming, but magnetism has no effect over my psychological powers, something like that, something to that effect. Um, so she hit him with the glass or whatever, and the glass was able to take him out. But that whole scene was fantastic. And what else? The voice acting of this, man, first of all, the voice acting of X-Men animated series is just phenomenal. It just raised the bar for, what you can do on a scripted Saturday morning cartoon. So I was worried going into this show, but see, in the first three episodes, and this episode in particular, the reason I say this episode in particular is because we had a lot of characterization in this episode, with the Goblin Queen, with Cyclops. We had a lot of characterization that required, you know, really strong acting to kind of get you invested in the story and the characters and the plot that's taking place. And I just think that the voice acting continues to be phenomenal and top notch. I was worried because um, the actress that's doing Jean Grey in this show, she actually did the voice of Jean Grey in Wolverine and the X-Men, which I mentioned earlier, which is amazing, keeping it kind of in the family, so to speak. Um, I was nervous about that because, I know that the original actress, Catherine Disher, she's actually a part of the show, and she did such a fantastic job with the voice acting of Jean Grey in the 90s. So when I read that she's going to be a part of this show, but she would not be voicing Jean Grey, I was like, wait a minute, why not? Why are you not voicing the same character? But when you take into account that, voices change, it's been what, 25, 26, almost 30 years. No, it hasn't been that long. 26 years since the original X-Men. Voices change. And so I didn't take that into account. And so but I'm glad that she's still a part of the show and she's actually voicing Valerie Cooper, the government liaison. So I thought that was interesting. But in regards to the actress who's taken over the voice role of Jean Grey, and she also did the voice, of course, of Goblin Queen. I thought she did a fantastic job. She's doing a fantastic job as, not only voice matching the original Catherine Disher, but also bringing her own flavor to the role. And like I said, she played the role before in Wolverine and the X-Men. So, and I think she did it in a couple of games too. I think she did her voice in Marvel vs. Capcom 3, if I'm not mistaken. So, excuse me. Speaking of voices, but okay, and I'm back, and I'm back. But yeah, so yeah, I think she's doing a fantastic job. And Cyclops, the actor that's doing Cyclops, is doing such a fantastic job in his voice. Um, it's the script is very meaty. It's a lot of, dimensions that you have to convey just in your voice. And I think that the voice actor that's doing Cyclops is doing such an amazing job, you know, uh, dealing with that struggle of, you've really felt it in his performance. He didn't want to be abandoned, or he didn't want to abandon his son like, his father abandoned him, or he felt abandoned, when he was a kid. And so you really feel that in his performance and his voice acting and everything. And so just all around, just the voice acting just is fantastic, and Wolverine, you can see he's not always, the grump, but just his interaction with the real Jean Grey as she was, coming out of her stupor was just fantastic. Just hearing the three dimensions in his voice, just you can see his feeling and the love that he still has, for Jean Grey just by his voice mannerisms. I think she said something like, what did she say? She said, you love me, or I mean that much to you? And he's like, sure. I can't do it the way he did it, but just you can hear the passion, you can hear the affection in his voice. And I just think Cal Dodd is just doing, it's like he didn't miss a beat, with reprising this role as Wolverine. So yeah, the voice acting is just fantastic, man, all around. What else do I have here? Um, yeah, so yeah, the character development is perfect. They really are bringing out, you know, all of these characters are getting their due. I don't think everybody has something to do. It's not just they're there just for background or whatever. They all have a purpose, and it all seems all the characters seem like uh, you know, they have a purpose that they're leading to. It all seems like it's building up to something, and there's plot points set that can really have the characters be blossomed into areas that we didn't expect. Even as a comic book person who knows these stories that they're adapting, it can still, surprise you. Like I knew that just by reading the characters and everything and knowing the X-Men comics over the years, I was still surprised when I saw the doppelganger Jean come to the door. Now it's coming to find out she's the real Jean. I was still surprised, even though I know in the comics, what to expect. But it's still nonetheless, it's still surprising to see it when it's adapted, whether it's in live action or animation. And so anyway, I say that to say it's going to be amazing to see the character development of these characters, um, you know, uh moving forward. I think we have like what, 8 more episodes, 8, 9, 10, 7, no, 7 more episodes left. Um, and I just can't wait to see if we getting all this in just the first 3 episodes, and we got this in this just one episode. Man, it's no telling what's going to happen in the next, 7 episodes. So I'm really looking forward to that. Um, so this is my quick review. Um, I This is my quick review of X-Men 97. Uh, it's it's definitely worth it. This storyline is definitely they did a fantastic job of adapting, the Inferno storyline. Um, I couldn't be more satisfied, as in fact, for them to adapt such a multi-year story in just one episode is just amazing. So I'm really looking forward to what's to come. Um, Yep, that's it. So yeah, you can find me on all the interwebs, just at Gwash Universe. And until next time, I'll see you in the universe.